brain damage? Really? Where's his brain damage? In what area? To say that is insulting to people that really suffer from brain damage. He walks. He talks. He can converse. He can hold a job. He's a better shot than most people. There's no brain damage here. And it's insulting to people that truly have it. He did it all. He held a job all by himself. This murder was well thought out, researched, planned, premeditated. He knew exactly what he was doing was wrong. He got enjoyment out of it and watching people suffer. He studied doing this for years, even long before she passed away. He wanted to do this. He wanted to kill people. This was an act of pure evil. Society tried for almost 2 decades to try to rehabilitate him. He had more mental health treatment than anyone. Henderson was at his house for hours a day. Hours a day. But he fell off the grid, right? They tried to get him off his pathway to violence, but nobody was successful. This wasn't somebody that fell through the cracks and you know it, or got lost in the system. They tried, but they could not change his determination to inflict pain upon everything they touched, whether it was animals or human. He is a sociopath that does not deserve to live amongst us. This creature, that creature, has no redeemable value. And the other prisoners that you will encounter in your new life will inflict that pain upon you, hopefully 17 times over again, until you're screaming for mercy, just like your victims. You mentioned that life in prison is punishment for him. He wanted life in prison from the beginning. How's that punishment? He's been fighting the prosecution and the families for the last 5 years because he doesn't want to die. He's scared to die. He had a well-thought-out strategy to wear his school ROTC shirt that day so he could escape with the rest of the kids running for their lives. Punishment is something the individual doesn't want. In prison, he gets to receive phone calls, boxes of fan mail. He gets to fall in love and get married. He gets a tablet to email and text people. He gets to receive visitors. He gets to watch TV, read books, draw, and write about killing again, and even get a college degree. How is that punishment? He has never had anyone punish him before. He received 77 disciplinary referrals just in middle school alone because he was a menace in the classroom and never had any consequences. How is giving him what he wants, again, punishment? It's not. It's ironic that the anniversary of your mother's death is the same day as my birthday. Today's my birthday. Just know, I want you to know, that every November 1st, I will be celebrating my birthday while you are in prison. And every November 1st, I will be blowing out my birthday candles. And you know what my wish will be? That you suffer a painful, violent death. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Schechter.
We don't have anyone in the waiting room. You can go ahead and continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Mrs. Ann Ramsey. Excuse me, Your Honor. I was told that she was here.
That's okay.
across the bar?
Sure. Do these things work? Okay. All right, Ms. McNeil, you may continue.
I'll wait till we have a break, please.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to wait until we have a break, please.
To when we're not in recess to make an objection? When we're in recess to make an objection?
I can do it now, Judge. With all due respect to the victims' families and the proceedings in Marcy's law, the defense team in this case followed and maintained their constitutional duty, the Sixth Amendment right to provide effective representation to Mr. Cruz. This is a constitutional right that is afforded to every criminal defendant in the system. The court is aware, and so is the state, of Marcy's law and the victims' rights that are afforded in the United States Constitution as well as the Florida Constitution. That does not include personally attacking defense counsel and our children. The defense reached out to the state, Mrs. McCann specifically, in anticipation that something like this might happen. I understand that the victims' families are entitled to feel however they want to feel and are allowed to say whatever it is that they want to say. But in the court of law, it is the court's responsibility to maintain the administration of justice. And you know the parameters of a sentencing hearing. The state knows the parameters of a sentencing hearing. I have spoken in email to Mrs. McCann. Mr. Weeks has spoken to the Chief Judge Tudor. And we have also spoken to Mr. Pryor in an effort to prevent this from happening. I did my job, and every member of this team did their job, Judge. And we should not personally be attacked for that, nor should our children. And I'm asking this court, as the administrator of justice, please ask the victims' families like I asked the state attorney's office to do. They know that this is improper. They know this. They know that attacking defense counsel, attacking the judicial system, and attacking the jurors is not permissible. And it sends a message to this community that if you sit as a juror and the verdict you're not in agreement with, that you will be chastised and you will be degraded. Our system of justice is designed the way that it was administered in this courtroom. If he would have gotten death, we would not have said one single word about that, and we would have respected the jury's verdict. This is our system of government, Judge, and Your Honor should be maintaining the decorum in this courtroom to prevent these families from attacking our children and from attacking us personally when we were appointed on this case.
Oh, okay,
Judge.
your objection is noted. State, do you want to add anything?
Your Honor, before we call our next witness, I would like to put something on the record, if I may be allowed, Your Honor.
Okay.
And it is important. The defense, the defendant, has taken the lives of these people's family members, their children, their husbands, their sons. And now the defense attorneys want to take the voice of the survivors, the victims, and curtail their rights under Florida law, specifically 941.143, the Florida Constitution, Section 16B, Article 1, which gives victims a right, Your Honor, to express themselves and be heard. They're also trying to curtail the victim's rights to speak under Chapter 960. And Ms. McNeil is right. She did reach out to me, and she did ask that we ask the victims not to speak about the verdict, about the case, but under 941.143, each and every one of these victims here today was apprised under the law by our office, which we had a duty to do, that statements, whether oral or written, shall relate to the facts of the case and the extent of any harm, including social, psychological, or physical harm, financial losses, loss of earnings directly or indirectly from the crime for which the defendant is being sentenced, and any matter relevant to an appropriate disposition and sentence. What these victims are here to talk about today, Your Honor, is an appropriate disposition and sentence. The defense cannot try and impose prior restraint on these victims who have every right to be here and exercise their freedom of speech under the First Amendment, under the Florida Constitution, and under Florida law, Chapter 943 and Chapter 960. And these victims have every right to express themselves. They were muzzled, they were curtailed under victim impact because they knew the instructions and they followed them to a T. And the defense knows that the state worked with the defense to make sure that everything on victim impact was admissible. There were no objections, and the record will bear that out. And Ms. McNeil knows that she and I met to make sure that victim impact was absolutely perfect under the law. And these victims now have a chance and a right to come in here and say what they're allowed to say and what they're legally allowed to say. What the defense is doing is illegal to try and curtail these victims' rights under the law, and it's unconscionable. These victims have a right to express themselves. I have not gone over what their statements are because under the law, under Chapter 960, they don't have to tell me what they're going to say. They can ask me if they need guidance, and I will provide it to them. But they have a right to address this court. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, State, you can go ahead and call your next witness.
I just need to say that the defense is not attempting to curtail the limits of the sentencing proceeding or the rights that the victims' families have. We are not trying to do that. But the state attorney's office knows that what is happening here is beyond what the victims' families are constitutionally protected to do. You can say whatever you want to Mr. Cruz. You can attack him and say whatever you want. But your Honor knows that what is happening here is not permissible.
Ms. McNeil, stop suggesting that I know that something is impermissible and that I am allowing it to happen. You're finished. I've heard your objection. It's noted. State, go ahead and call Ms. Ramsey.
Ms. Ann Ramsey, please. Ms. Ramsey, right here.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning.
Are both of you ladies going to be making a statement?
No, just
Okay. Ma'am, will you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down and please state your full name for the record.
Anne Marie Ramsey.
It's nice to see you again.
Thank you. You too.
Ms. Ramsey, would you like to say something on behalf of your daughter, Helena?
I would. Thank you.
Please do.
When the trial started, I wasn't sure whether the murderer should get the death penalty or life. But after listening to all of the details, it was most certainly, for me, the death penalty. You are pure evil. On Tuesday, the 13th of February, 2018, I shared my last meal with Helena. She was radiant. And do you know what she said to me? She said, "Thank you, Mummy. Delicious, Mummy. Thank you. Thank you." Her praise was superfluous. It was as though it was a lifetime of thank yous that she was saying to me that evening. And yes, dinner was exceptionally good. It was really good. So I can only say thank you to God above, because my angel was going to be put to sleep. That's all I can say. Helena was part of the first priority club at Douglas. So she was a lovely girl. She was an angel to me. How many children say thank you these days to their parents? How many kids said thank you to their parents last night? How many kids do that these days? Did you thank your mother? Did you thank your mother, the murderer, for pulling you out of what could have been a life of poverty, a sordid life? No, you beat on your mother. You beat her. Before Helen's dad left for work, she would always say, "Bye, Daddy. Love you, Daddy." In the morning she left for school, she said, "Bye, Mummy. Love you." And she skipped off. And my last text from Helena was a smiley face. Just one of those smiley faces with the hearts. Because I had given her a cookie from Target stores. We love Target. It was a soft fondant cookie. It was huge, and it had just the hearts, just like the emoji that she sent me. That was her acknowledgement to me. That was her love thrown back to me, saying, "Thank you, Mum. Thank you for throwing that in there on Valentine's Day." That was the last text that I received from my daughter. And this is what I have to say about the Broward school system. Helena, this is a repeat for what I said before. As Helena's mother, I was most impressed by her wisdom and her strength of character. As a young girl, she received a perfect score in her end-of-year math test, and she was told by her teacher, "You'll be in the gifted class the following year." And funnily enough, the teacher was Asian, from the continent of India, Pakistan. And she said, "You were a wonderful student, excellent results, and you will be in the gifted class for the next academic year. However, the following academic year, Helena came home and she complained, "I'm not in the gifted class, Mummy." So I told her, "We'll go and find out." So we had a meeting, a conference with the principal, and there was no logical reason given. The principal said, "Oh, she could have got a fluke on her test, or perhaps you've even sort of cheated by guiding her towards," I don't know what her reasons were. There was no logical reason from the principal. So, the following year, Helena stepped up and achieved another perfect score. So I was surprised, and I just celebrated with her, gave her a cupcake. "Fantastic work, Helena," I said. So we went to the conference, and on the way out, we met one of her friends and the mothers, and she was ecstatic. Her daughter had done well. Not 100% on the test, but a great score. And when I went into the conference, I waited to hear what the teacher had to say. And she never mentioned it. So when Helena came out, she said, "Mummy, what did the teacher say? What did the teacher say?" Because that was Helena. She loved to step it up. If you tried to knock her down, she would step it up. Yes, a girl at that young age. And I said, "The teacher didn't mention it, Helena. The teacher didn't mention your excellent results." So I promised Helena, I said, "I'll take care of you, because my job is to make sure that you're an all-rounder. You're beautiful on the outside and you're beautiful on the inside, and you do the best to the best of your ability." And I could see that she was immersed in a school system that did not want to promote well-behaved, hard-working, conscientious, black, brown, or biracial children. And Helena, she gained her rightful spot in the gifted class. But then she surprised me again. She said, after only a few weeks of being in this class, "Mum, this is not the gifted class. This is not. The children don't understand. The children just talk. The children are popular kids. It's not the gifted class." And this perplexed me, because growing up in England, we were always encouraged to do our best. In fact, there were many children from our school, many successful, and many from many different backgrounds. And one was the incredibly talented Sir David Ajajaye, who graduated from the very same high school that I attended. He is the lead design architect of the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. Just imagine the loss if his spirit was crushed when I went to school. Our teachers encouraged us. Doesn't matter what race, what class, we were just encouraged to do our best and encouraged to shine. And Helena and I visited that museum, and Helena declared, "There's so much to see. We must return to the museum to see it all." And sadly, this will never happen. Never happen. And then this statement was, let's see if there's anything else. Yeah. So now I'll move on to the Broward Sheriff's Office. And Vincent Ramsey pretty much said the first part. "I lost Helena, my daughter, on my birthday. And we should have been out celebrating, laughing, enjoying dinner, just doing the usual birthday celebrations. And we spent hours fruitlessly searching nearby hospitals for Helena because we were told that she was injured. Someone had mistaken her for Samantha Grady, which was often the case. So we thought she was injured, so we braced ourselves for the worst. And then we went to the North Broward General Hospital, the main hospital, and we asked for our daughter. The whole family was searching for our daughter. And when we were at the hospital, just by looking at the response, they knew our daughter had died. But they sent us to the Marriott. They sent us to the Marriott Center. And we feel that they should have told us at the hospital, because the hospital is equipped with conference rooms, chapels, equipped to tell people the passing of their loved ones. Instead, we were sent to a Marriott. And let me tell you, we were waiting there for hours and hours and hours, listening to the screams and the howling of all the other families. All of my family was there that night. And we found out, because I have friends at the hospital in Broward, that you were in the hospital. You were being taken care of while our loved ones lay dead. You were, as far as I can see, continuing your ploy, the start of your ploy for your illness or whatever it was. Instead of taking care of us, they were taking care of you. And we will never forget that night. The screams, the howling. And yes, I quote, "It was not an effing pizza party." One of the families screamed. It was not an effing pizza party. You kept us there. And my family was there until about 3 a.m. that morning that we left. We were the last family to be looked at. Someone came over to us and they said, "How many families are here?" There was only one family, my family, the black family, left until the end. And this is what I have to say to the sheriff's office, because this is how black people are treated. When people say Black Lives Matter, it's how we are treated. I was asked by a reporter, would the shooter have been killed if he was black? And I had to stand there and think about that. I had to think about that, because it's not that simple. The shooter, if he was black, would not have made it past the gate, because that's the response. It's an aggressive response. He would have been stopped before he entered the gate. So I couldn't have said he would have been shot. No, I can say the response would have been different. And this is how we are treated. Same with the Broward schools. My daughter didn't get her acknowledgement. Same with the Broward Sheriff's Office. My family, all of my family, were there until 3 a.m. while you were in the hospital with your fake illness, with your ploy. And that is what I have to say, because When I sat down with the principal at Broward School, it was whatever. She just did whatever she wanted to do. She didn't follow the rules. And when we sat in the Marriott Hotel, it was the black family, all herded together, left until the end. And that's the change that needs to happen. People keep going on about affirmative action in colleges. I've been here 20 years. Has anything changed? Very little. It's not in your face, but we still need positive action. We still need positive action. So you took away an angel that day. That could have made a difference in society. And that's all I have to say today. Thank you. Thank you.
State, you can call your next witness.
The next witness, Your Honor, would be Ellen Mayer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Will both of you be speaking? Or
I will be speaking.
Okay. Go ahead and raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Please state your full name for the record.
Ellen Mayer.
Thank you.
Mrs. Mayer, would you like to give a statement for your daughter, Samantha?
Yes, we would.
Please do.
Thank you. I am Ellen Mayer, and this is my husband, Jess Mayer. We are the parents of Samantha Mayer, and I will be reading Samantha's words verbatim today, as she could not be here. My name is Samantha Mayer, and I am one of the 17 people who were injured during the Stoneman Douglas shooting. The reason I have decided to speak today is not only to share my story, but to share the actual long-term effects of gun violence as a survivor of it. I hope to bring awareness to some parts of a shooting that might be overlooked. I was sitting in my 4th period classroom, waiting to go home to see the flowers that were sent to me for Valentine's Day, and instead, I found myself in an ambulance being transported to the hospital with a gunshot wound through my knee. That gunshot wound stays with me today and for the rest of my life in the form of 3 scars on my left kneecap. The gunshot actually stays with me in many ways beyond what is physical. It reminds me of the most fearful day of my life when I was laying on the floor, unable to move, and terrified to speak. I remember accepting my death at that moment and reminding myself that my friends and family know that I love them. It reminds me of when I begged my classmates not to open the door for the policeman because I couldn't see what was happening and I feared more danger. It reminds me of when I asked a member of SWAT to text my mom because I didn't have the time to grab my phone to tell her that I was alive. Beyond the trauma of that day that replays in my head, I've come to realize that I find trauma in my day-to-day life as a result of the shooting. I am now afraid of tight spaces because if something were to happen, I would not be able to escape. I also look for the closest exit in every room I walk into because I just need to know where it is. I turn around whenever I hear a noise because I need to know what that noise was to put my mind at ease. And yes, I mean every noise. My heart also drops every time I hear a loud noise, and I am transported into a state of pure terror because I am so terrified to be in another shooting. I bet that doesn't happen to most people. I've learned that the beginning of every year brings a lot of heartache for me as I wait through January and half of February for the anniversary of when I saw death before my eyes. Carmen, I think about you every day, and it never hurts less. Beyond the struggles I have in my life currently, I have fears for my future. I fear that sending my children to school one day will be one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I fear, against all odds, that there is a possibility of him being released one day. I fear so many things that I can't write them all on paper because the thought is too painful. To other gun violence survivors who may be listening, I would like to commend your strength. I know your journey hasn't been easy. The jury had to endure this trial for 6 months, but I have to live with this outcome for the entirety of my life. For my community, my family, and myself, I feel devastated. Justice has not been served. Now we all have to breathe the same air of someone who wanted us to never take another breath. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, that would be it for the morning.
Okay. What time will you be ready, or is it just a matter of taking a break in the normal course?
I think probably, let's see, it's 11:49 now. The Montalto said they would be here after 1
Okay.
for school, so play it safe, maybe 1:20.
Okay.
All right.
Is that suitable to the defense? Okay, why don't we just make it 1:30?
Thank
Do
you,
you
Your
think
Honor.
we won't have time to finish this afternoon? Is that why you were thinking 1:20?
Well, no, 1:30 is fine. I was just trying to
That's
be
okay.
conservative with time.
Okay, I know it takes everyone quite
There are other witnesses for tomorrow as well, but I anticipate it will be a short afternoon, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so we are in recess until 1:30.
Thank you.
They still have the secondary screening, so I know it takes everyone time to get back and forth if they go to lunch, which is why I think 1:30 would be better.
Thank you.
Sure.
that is directed towards the defense team in this matter. It is very important, considering what has been happening throughout this nation with threats to the Speaker of the House and violence that has incurred, that we do not create an atmosphere where dog whistles are being emanated from this courtroom, encouraging folks to act on those same types of behaviors. This is a sentencing hearing. We are asking the court to direct the state to direct those witnesses to address the matters at hand, and that is their feelings with respect to how this particular sentence impacted them and how that will be helpful for the court to render judgment. But to direct any other statements or any other suggestions to the defense and to the jurors to encourage or incite folks to act on those encouragements is not
I object to
appropriate.
these remarks. There has been no incitement. There has been no remarks. How you could equate violence? I mean,
I
the only
agree,
violence
Mr.
we
Weeks.
talked about is the defendant's violence.
All right, and respectfully, Mr. Weeks, Ms. McNeil, who's lead counsel in this case, has made all of these arguments. I've heard them. There's been 16 people that have testified. Only 2 have made a direct comment to the lawyers. And
You know, Judge, I'm standing here and I see that Jeff Marcus jumped up really quickly. But no one jumped up when people were referring to karma acting in the universe. No one was jumping up when they were referring to the defense children. No one jumped up to try to tap down that rhetoric. That is the rhetoric that I'm talking about. That is what I'm trying to be very clear on. Jeff Marcus, the state, they can hide behind their arguments, but we all are witnessing what is occurring in this courtroom.
which is myself. I'm a judge,
And
and
I
understand that I'm in
thank you,
charge
Judge.
of the decorum, and I feel that 99% or a great percentage of what has been said has been appropriate. Everybody has maintained decorum, but for a few comments, it's best to just move on as opposed to highlight them.
This is true, Judge, but I am witnessing a building of momentum, and I'm encouraging the court to direct the state to tap down on that momentum so it does not reoccur and it does not become a theme. Thank you, Judge.
Your Honor, for the record, the only thing the state has said to any of these witnesses when they get up is, would they like to say something on behalf of the victim they're representing? There's been no encouraging or inciting, as Mr. Weeks has put on this record. That is a blatant falsehood and a recreation of the record. As far as no objections being made, it's the defense that could have objected. It's not the state's duty to object to their own witnesses when they're testifying.
Okay. Listen, I've already heard. If you have anything else to say, you can put it in writing at a later time. I've heard from both sides more than once. That's going to be it. I've made my decision. Like I said, 99% of what's been testified to has been appropriate. I do not want to highlight the few things that were said that were perhaps not appropriate, and let's move on.
Judge, I'm asking for 20 seconds next.
You can have as many seconds as you want in writing, and you can put all of your objections in writing. They've been made multiple times from your chief assistant, from Ms. McNeil, and I don't want to hear anything else. I've already heard it. Is there something that has not already been argued?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, exactly what is it?
Judge, before Mr. Schachter took the podium and testified before this court, I wanted to reflect that both Mr. Marcus and Mr. Satz looked at the statement prior to the reading. And so their implicit adoption of what he was saying, this improper arguments, improper discourse, and the court should chastise.
Okay, but what you are doing right now is highlighting something and making more of a spectacle. So if your office in general does not want to facilitate or incite violence, then we need to just sit down and move on. That's it. There were 18 witnesses, 16 or 18 witnesses that testified today. There was nothing that was said until Ms. McNeil made her point made, and, you know, we're moving on.
But is the court going to do anything about maybe stopping it from happening again?
When these people are upset about specific things that have gone on from that table, like shooting the middle finger up at this court and laughing and joking. Miss McNeil, be quiet. When these people have sat in this courtroom and watched this behavior from that table, and they want to say that they're not happy about it, what is the problem?
Judge, I have no problem because I have thick skin. But once you bring in my children, I think that's highly improper. I
didn't even know you have children. I don't know what you're talking about. Your children? What about your children?
For them to comment on my children is highly improper, and for this court to allow that kind of testimony is also improper.
I don't remember any comments about any children. And if there was, it obviously didn't, it came and went without me noticing it.
Judge, I can assure you that if they were talking about your children, you would definitely notice it.
You need to sit down right now. You're out of line. In fact, you're excused. You need to go sit in the back with your chief public defender.
He's the public defender.
Mr. Weeks, please ask the lawyer from your office to go sit down and not say anything else. To try to threaten my children and bring up my children is inappropriate. Go to the back of the room now. That just violated about every rule of professional responsibility that I have never. If you're going to get up here and you're going to...
Judge, I asked you to go sidebar on this matter.
You, sidebar or not, you don't have one of your assistant public defenders say something about my children?
Judge, that same venom that the court is expressing is the same venom that defense counsel had to sit through this entire morning when their children
She brought up her children multiple times during the trial. Nobody knows if I'm barren or not. They don't know about my children.
Judge.
Sit down. Sit down.
Judge.
Sit down, Mr. Weeks.
Please do not summarily dismiss me.
I'm summarily dismissing you.
The
Go
court,
sit down.
I'm asking the court. I asked the court to go sidebar.
Go sit down. You don't threaten the
Judge,
court's children.
Everyone in this
Your assistant
courtroom.
just did that. Go sit down.
No one in this courtroom had to endure what we had to endure.
Go sit down. Miss McNeil has made her children a spectacle more than once during this trial. That was her choice. You have absolutely no right to have one of your assistants come up here and suggest something about my children. Now, please go sit down.
Judge.
You're inappropriate and out of line. Go sit down.
Judge, may I have a brief recess?
No. Go sit down.
May I have a brief recess so I can speak to my attorneys?
We're moving on with the sentencing, Mr. Weeks.
So can I have a brief recess?
No.
Thank you.
It's 1:36. Thank you. State, go ahead and call your next witness.
Mr. Anthony Montalto.
Good afternoon, sir. Is it Mr. Montalto Jr. or Sr. that's going to be speaking, or both?
The third gets to go first.
Okay, sorry, the third. I just was trying to indicate that you were younger. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Please tell me your full name or state your full name for the record.
Anthony Vincent Montalto III.
State whenever you're ready.
Mr. Montalto, would you like to say something about your sister Gina?
Yes, I would.
Please go ahead.
February 14th, 2018. I was at Westglades Middle School in my 5th period class, filming a project with my friends. when I heard a fire alarm over at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. I then heard gunshots and ran inside. I sat on my desk and I felt something strange. I didn't know what it was until I felt a large pain in my chest. I realized it was a message saying my sister, Gina Rose Montalto, would not be coming home today. I ignored it out of hope, and I waited until I was clear to go home. I got on my bike, and I rode as fast as I could. I dropped my stuff at the door, and I yelled for my mom and dad. They were leaving to go see if Gina was safe. They told me to wait at home with my uncle. At 10 p.m., they returned as I was eating dinner. They had tears in their eyes. They said she was dead. The worst part about it was, that morning, I did not say goodbye to her. Gina was my only sister. She was fun to be with. She was really smart. She would help me whenever I needed it. I will never have that again. I will never be able to watch TV with her, talk about books with her. Every day, I walk by her room and see that it's empty. Every day, I see pictures and I think about her. Every day I wake up and I remember that she will not be there. It's a great pain that only I feel. To go from a younger brother to an only child in less than 6 hours is a dramatic change for anyone. Every day, I wish I could come home and see her again. Every day, I wish this had never happened. Every day, I wish I had said goodbye like I should have. While this reality I now live in is an unfortunate truth, an even more unfortunate truth is that this country has forgotten who the victim is. The murderer is not a victim of drinking during pregnancy. He is not a victim of mental health issues. He is a murdering bastard that should be made an example by being sentenced to death. He shouldn't live while my sister rots in a grave. The jury has failed the families, the victims, and me. Was this mass murderer a victim when he put the gun to my sister's chest and shot her? Was he a victim when he shot her again? Was he a victim when he shot her 2 more times on his second pass? Some jurors may have thought so, but I know he is just a murdering bastard. I'm speaking about this today because I've held my tongue long enough. People have heard from adults and parents, police and medical staff, but they haven't heard from me. A boy whose life was changed in a flash when this murdering bastard chose to kill my fun-loving older sister, Gina Rose Montalto. I hope the jurors that allowed him to live will regret their decision after hearing this from me today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. State would next call Mr. Tony Montalto.
Good afternoon, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir. You can put your hand down. Please state your full name for the record.
Anthony Vincent Montalto.
Okay, state whenever you're ready.
Mr. Montalto, is there something you'd like to say on your daughter Gina's behalf?
Yes, there is.
Please do so.
I will begin with some positives by thanking the Eagles Haven team for helping our families endure the hours spent in the courthouse. By thanking you, Judge Scherer, for presiding over the trial with all its twists and turns, as well as keeping the press at bay while allowing them to inform the public. You were as compassionate as the law allowed to our families. Thanks to the state attorneys that prosecuted this case for your dedication, your professionalism, and constant communication with our families. To the Victims Advocates team, thanks for sitting with us, letting us vent our frustrations and answer an untold number of questions, from what to expect next to where is prosciutto. This case, with 17 innocent students and teachers murdered at school, is why we have the death penalty in Florida's laws. If the jury had followed that law, if the jury took in the evidence presented, there is only one logical and fact-based outcome. Sadly, the jury ignored the facts and went with emotion. They worried about how they would feel if this murdering bastard was put to death by the state of Florida for committing this heinous crime. They were selfish and misguided and allowed prisoner number 0893407 to avoid the punishment he deserved. The jury was worn out and did not want to be sequestered. The jury instructions were complex, and I believe these factors combined and led to a less than thorough deliberation process. Did they consider what kind of message their verdict sent to our nation's students and teachers when they found a way to excuse the murder of Gina and the others? Did they consider how they would explain their verdict to the siblings of the victims, as my wife and I struggled to do? The current requirement for a unanimous decision for a death verdict is tough to meet. It allows one activist juror with preconceived bias against the death penalty to swing the case in favor of evil. Once one juror shows sympathy, decides that they can't live with the tough decision to hold a murderer, and in this case, a mass murderer, accountable, it relieves the others and allows them an avenue to avoid voting for the death penalty. The vote is not to put a random individual to death. It is called the death penalty because it's supposed to be imposed due to the actions of the convicted murderer. Assuming that's supported by facts, as the jury acknowledged clearly in this case. An interesting historical fact is that now two of the most infamous mass murderers in Florida history, Ted Bundy and this murderer of my child and 16 others, did not receive a unanimous verdict of death in our state's courts. Perhaps it's time for the state legislature to make a change, back to a simple majority or perhaps a supermajority of 9 votes out of 12, to impose the maximum punishment when the aggravating factors warrant it. This would be more fair to the victims. My beautiful, bubbly, and kind daughter deserved to live a happy and full life. She should have been protected at her school from the monster sitting here, with no less than, 6 BSO deputies, as he enjoys the protection of his rights in this courtroom. I applaud the court and the prosecution team for following the ideals of our justice system, as the evil murderer enjoyed a fair trial. I don't believe the case was fair to the victims. The court allowed the defense to show every aspect of prisoner 8093407's life prior to the execution of Gina and her classmates. Pictures showing his smiling face, while at the same time claiming life was so tough it justified the mass murder of innocent students and teachers in school. Our families were prohibited from bringing photos of our murdered loved ones to the courtroom. We couldn't even wear bracelets or pins to court to represent the victims. The court did everything it could to dehumanize our beautiful Gina, her classmates, and her teachers, who were massacred by this admitted murderer. My family and the others had to sit like church mice in the courtroom for fear of influencing the jury and possibly causing a mistrial. We all showed amazing grace and decorum as we learned the terrible things this murdering bastard did to our children, spouses, and fathers. The justice system even stops the jury from considering our victim impact statements. How could it be a fair trial when the only people who can speak for the victims, those who cannot speak for themselves, have the jury instructed to disregard our words? The system is biased against the victims. It trampled the First Amendment rights of my family in a misguided effort to protect the perpetrator of these heinous crimes. This injustice must be fixed. The victims' rights must be recognized. As for the defense team, you had a job to do. You had no case because the facts of the cold, calculated, horrific actions should have sealed this mass murderer's fate via the law. Somehow, though, you all managed to be petty and marginally professional. You disrespected the court in words and action. You laughed and joked with the twisted and purely evil man you defended. You brought in talented out-of-town personnel to bolster your team and help represent the murderer of my child. No expense was spared as you sought out experts in established and in questionable science, many of which you did not use as you chose to prey on the jury's emotions. What was the cost of prisoner 0893407's defense to the taxpayers of Broward County? That number has yet to be revealed. Those citizens should all ask why. Why was so much effort put towards this prisoner, while in this very building, the same week his verdict was read, 2 other murderers were sentenced to death for their crimes? Quite frankly, you had no right to ask this jury for mercy. He showed no mercy when he shot my forever 14-year-old Gina in the chest, just as he thought about doing when he searched the internet for months before. The dirtbag even came back and shot her on a second pass. Unbelievable. As I read to the court last time I spoke here, Gina loved life. She loved her family, and she was literally a lifesaver. She would have gone on to change the world had she been able to grow up and fulfill her potential. My family had hoped this jury would follow the law and vote to give the low-life admitted killer the maximum penalty allowed to the fullest extent of the law. We expected the admitted mass murderer to die in prison and at the soonest possible opportunity under the law. He should not be allowed any kind of life, any joy, or any time to reflect quietly on his continued existence. We all have choices to make in life, struggles we must all work through. Despite these struggles, we should look to help one another. Yet the dirtbag murderer, who has now gotten a fair trial, chose to kill and maim as many innocent students as teachers as he could, without remorse, without compassion, and with extreme prejudice. He deserves the same treatment throughout his stay in the state penitentiary system. He has had a lot of help throughout his life, and yet he chose to attack our nation's future by shooting up a school. The murdering bastard that took my daughter's life has benefited from the grace and protections of every system our society offers. He should now be placed in a correctional facility where he is forced to interact without those protections. The misguided jury thought prisoner 089-3407 was failed by society. To be clear, the system, schools, mental health professionals, law enforcement, and now the justice system failed my daughter Gina, her classmates, and her teachers, which he chose to murder. A planned, cold, calculated, heinous attack where the monster chose to pull his trigger 139 individual times. Today, the court prepares to sentence this admitted mass murderer. However, the legacy and greatness of the victims is being preserved and extended because Stand With Parkland, formed by our damaged yet amazingly resilient families, succeeded in creating the Federal School Safety Clearinghouse, which today begins a 3-day national summit on how to protect America's schools. As for my wife, Jennifer, my son, Anthony, and our entire family, we will remember Gina every day. We will honor her memory at every opportunity. We will work to make our nation's schools safer for other students and teachers. And the Gina Rose Montalto Memorial Foundation will help others achieve their goals, spread kindness, and keep Gina's light shining for all in this world to see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Montalto. Judge, may I have a moment to see who else we have? Thank you. Your Honor, that's it for witnesses for today.
Okay, and then tomorrow, your preference is to start at 1:30, if I'm not mistaken?
1 o'clock, 1:30, whatever the court's desire.
Okay, does that suit the defense? All right, we'll start at 1:30.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Tomorrow, we're in recess for today.
Thank you.